Some brand names are just super easy to remember. But why? Well, in this video, we're going to learn why some brand names are just simply easier to remember than others, how you can use neuroscience to create super memorable brand names of your own, and why a gecko could be the answer to everything. Now, brand naming has a long, rich history dating back to ancient times over 5,000 years ago when products were marked with symbols and signatures to basically identify who made them. But the real question is, what does this have to do with you naming your brand and modern day brand naming? Well, absolutely nothing, but also everything. Let me explain. So, there are three main reasons why a brand name can be super sticky and memorable: consistency, patterns, and emotion. First, let's start with consistency. The role of familiarity and repetition is important when cementing a brand name in the long-term memory of your target audience. You see, when humans are repeatedly exposed to something, we become more comfortable with it and develop a sense of trust around the product, experience, or thing. Now, there is one drawback to consistency, and it's that you need a huge amount of resources to invest in generating exposure and repeatedly advertising to get your brand in front of the right people over and over and over again until they eventually start to recognize you. Now, I don't know about you, but I have better things to spend my money on, like watches and books that I never get around to reading. So maybe this isn't the best approach to get our brand name to stick in our customers' mind, which leads us nicely onto patterns. How? I have no idea. But patterns in brand naming are super important. And by patterns, I don't mean the pattern on your grandma's wallpaper. I mean patterns in language and the associations that we can make with existing memories stored in our hippocampus. Now, you may be wondering, what is a hippocampus? Isn't that a Pokemon? Probably. But actually, it isn't. Because our hippocampus is potentially the coolest thing about your brain. Let's imagine for a second that your brain is a library filled with thousands of books with stories and memories and useful pieces of information. So your hippocampus is basically your brain's entire memory system, helping you to keep the important books that you're going to need to keep you safe and prosperous, and getting rid of books that just aren't really as much use to you anymore. So you may be wondering, Scott, where does brand naming come into all this? Well, when we're trying to get a customer to remember our brand name, it's a little like walking into the library and trying to subtly place our book on their bookshelf. Now, I don't personally know any librarians, and if you are a librarian, then I'm sorry for this and welcome to the channel. But librarians do tend to come across as a little protective and, dare I say it, precious, which can be a good thing, unless your name's Gollum and you like rings. So the likelihood is that if we try to sneak our book onto someone's bookshelf, and their little librarian checks it and doesn't find it relevant or useful for the library, aka their brain, they'll just get rid of it and you will be quickly forgotten. However, if you want to sneak your book, aka your brand name, into the customer's library, aka mind, and say have it stay there, wouldn't it make sense to have it related to another book or memory that is already pre-existing in the library so it doesn't look out of place and is far more relevant? Because most of the memories that we have fall into either one of two categories. One, they're either emotionally charged or they are there to keep us safe and to help us make better decisions in future. So connecting our brand or brand name to something that already exists and is established in the customer's mind can result in your brand settling into the person's long-term memory far faster and easier, which leads us on very nicely to emotion and geckos. Now, when I say the word insurance to you, it probably doesn't get you excited, and it almost definitely doesn't fill you with warm, positive feelings. And if it does, good for you, whatever floats your boat. However, Geico realized in 1999 that they needed to reach a broader audience with their advertising and their marketing, and they hired an agency to help them solve this problem. Now, this agency is called Martin Agency. Is that relevant? No, but they did something very clever. They called me when I was 8 years old and asked me for ideas. Now, being the 8-year-old, I was extremely busy, but I took a long, hard think, and whilst I was watching my 10th episode of Simpsons of the day, I finally said, why don't you try using a small, cute animal? like a gecko. Now you may be wondering right now why a gecko was such a brilliant idea and how did it help the brand to stick in the customer's mind and become so well known, and how was I so smart when I was 8 years old? Well, the first two can be quickly understood by what we covered a little earlier. You see that little librarian running around trying to organize all of your memories and thoughts and experiences and trying to make sense of as many new books as possible being added to your library every day. The Geico insurance company is trying to place their book in the insurance section, which they quickly realized, how often do people actually think about insurance, and what do people generally perceive the insurance industry to be like? Some may say boring, some may say a complete waste of time and money. So they recovered their book and essentially rebranded and placed their book in the animal section instead, with a cover of a gecko on the front. Now this is powerful for three specific reasons. Firstly, pretty much everyone universally knows what a gecko is, unless you've been living under a rock your entire life, which in that case you may actually be a gecko yourself. Secondly, the gecko was the perfect mascot due to having so many positive associations already fully established in their customer's mind, such as being really approachable, friendly, not dangerous, and also having the indirect association with savings, due to the animal being able to save itself when falling by sticking to different surfaces with its sticky toes. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, nobody else was using a gecko at the time, and this is kind of the secret sauce to everything. Okay, let's summarize. So, the three ways that you can help your brand name stick in your customer's mind. First, consistency. You can repeatedly remind your customer of your brand name until they finally remember it. Next, there's the pattern approach. Link your brand to an existing memory that your customer already has. And lastly, emotion. Connect it with an experience, word, or thing that customers already have positive experiences or thoughts associated with it. And lastly, if you want a customer to remember your brand, you have to be brave enough to be different and stand out. Basically, be a gecko. And by the way, if you like geckos, for every like and comment this video gets, it will save one baby gecko from the corporate claws of Geico's marketing team and send it back to where it belongs, the zoo. Now, if you're really struggling with trying to find a great brand name for your company and you want something that's super catchy and memorable and that really stands out, we've got tons of helpful articles on our website which may be able to help, as well as our brand naming course where I basically share the exact same process that I use within my brand development agency to name brands for companies every single day. Or if you want to work with me directly to help you find the perfect brand name for your startup or company or business, then you should know two things. First, I'm very expensive. And second, if you can't afford to work with me, donuts may help.